Hey everybody, Stephen Nitz here. Welcome to class number 9. This is our last class for the Introduction to Premiere Pro course, and we're talking about export settings. So you can see here where we left off in class number 8 with our color. We talked about Lumetri color, Lumetri scopes, applying a LUT, and then kind of making those small adjustments on the clip level after we've applied the LUT to the footage at large. Now we're going to export, right? We have everything done, we've edited it, we like the feel, we've got our color, we've got our graphics, our music, our sound effects, our B-roll, we've created the scene, we're ready to share it out with the world, with our clients, our friends, social media, whatever we want. How do we do it? Great question. A couple of options. When you're here in Premiere Pro, you can click Export here, or you can go to File, Export. Up to you. When you go to File, Export, there's a few options here. What we're going to do is Export Media. And this dialog box opens up. Now this is what I was talking about at the end of class number 8. We could talk about this all day. We can create an entire course just about export settings the way we can make an entire course just about color settings. This will be pretty quick for today because I don't want to go too far into the weeds for stuff. I just want to hit on a couple of the important things. All right. So here we are. First thing I'm going to look at is the file name, the location, the preset, and the format. These are the things that we want to kind of look at first, and then we're going to look at these options down here. For file name, that's what we're calling it, and I already talked about this in earlier classes. I don't like using the word final when I'm making something, or version numbers when I'm making something, because then you're going to get into the territory of, you know, this is Cafe Bustelo final version 7, final version 9, you know. It kind of, there isn't an end to that nomenclature, that thought process. You're just going to keep on ticking up every time you hit export. And I don't necessarily want to send something to the client that says final version 4, because if it was the final, why would there be 4 versions of it? So my solution for that, how I like to label things, is just with the dates, because I'm going to send it to them on a date, and they're going to take a day to a week to get back to me. So the most current thing I have sent them is always the most current date, and that's always the most current version. Pretty simple. So I'm going to call this one Cafe Bustelo, and we are at 6/11/26, and that's what I would call it. That's it. Sometimes if I'm making more than one version of something, or more than one deliverable, if I have a horizontal version and a vertical version, a 4K version, a 1080 version, I'll also include that information right here. That way whoever's receiving the file can at a glance tell, is it vertical, is it horizontal, is it 4K, is it 1080? I even have one endpoint that's 720, believe it or not, so I'll even generate a 720 export if I need to. Next thing is location. Where do we want to save this project? We want to save it to that same parent folder that we made all the way back in the first class. So I'm going to go to location. I'm going to make sure I have my external hard drive selected to make sure I'm in that parent folder that I picked, and I'm going to hit save. Preset and format. So this is where things start to take on a little bit of a different form. If you're going to social media, you're going to YouTube, you're going to the web, H.264 is totally fine, totally accepted. It's going to be an MP4, and MP4s are definitely the most widely used format digitally, on the web, online, YouTube, social media, that kind of thing. So if I hit presets and go to drop down, I have all these different options here. If I hit more presets, you'll even see that there's options in here that'll say YouTube or Facebook, or, you know, let's say if I type in YouTube, you'll see I have all these kind of YouTube presets. Are you making a 1080? Are you making a 4K, a 480, a 720? You know, I think there's even ones in here for Facebook. Let's see, have they updated it to include Instagram, TikTok? Nope, nothing like that yet, but that's okay. So you can search in here, you can go through all these presets, and you can find a preset that matches the place you want to post it or share it, and you can, you know, rest assured knowing that the specs that you're exporting it in are going to match the platform that it's ending up on, because every one of these platforms has a slightly different spec that it can handle, a slightly different file size that it can handle, so you always want to ensure that you're exporting in a way that best suits the place you're going to display it. So if you go through presets, you can just take a look at those, find one that is going to work for what you are doing. Underneath that is format. Format's very similar to presets. There are tons of options here. And again, Depending on what you're doing with the deliverable and depending on where it's going to end up, you might need to use one of these options or another. And this is where we're getting into that territory of having an entire course dedicated to talking about presets and formats. Because there are so many and there are so many endpoints, it does get pretty specific. So something like a DNX HR MXF OP1A, that's very much a broadcast format. You're not going to use an MXF OP1A file for anything other than broadcast, right? Obviously something that says Blu-ray, very specific to Blu-ray. H.265, this HEVC setting, this is a newer one. This is supposed to be the next level of compression after H.264. When H.264 was created, 4K was the biggest format, and it was okay to compress that footage into an H.264 format. Now they're starting to use H.265, which kind of gives it a little bit more room. You can get all the way up, 6K, 8K, these bigger file formats, or these bigger camera aspect ratios, can be compressed in a different way so the file sizes aren't so big, but you still get the aspect ratio that you're shooting in. Obviously, JPEGs are images, MP3s are music. The options are endless. Just like the platforms and places we can distribute our content, it's endless. So when you're first getting into exporting, you're first getting into sending stuff, right here you just want to make sure you're choosing the options that best match the place you're trying to distribute to. From there, the same way that we talked about, applying LUTs to all of your footage and then doing specific adjustments on the clip level, we also have something similar to that here. So we've applied our preset and our format. So that's kind of our overall thing, our blanket, if you will. If we tab open video, we have some more options. Hit more, you'll see even more options. We don't want to mess with any of this stuff right now, but if we get into a territory, for example, where our file size after we export it is too big and it can't upload to where we're trying to send it to, one option that we can do is adjust our bit rate. You can reduce this number right here, and that will actually reduce the file size. So estimated file size right now is 128 megs, which is tiny. If I reduce this, you'll see it drops even more. So sometimes if you're creating a bigger piece, a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, or even something short form, 12 minutes, but you shot it in ProRes and you have a massive file and you need to shrink that file size so you can upload it to a platform, try adjusting your bit rate. That's one thing you can do. All right, so let's close that. And the next one is audio. In the same vein as going into the video settings and adjusting that bit rate to adjust the size of our actual file when we export it, we can also go into the audio tab here and kind of make some micro adjustments. So I actually have a sample rate that I recorded in here. If we look at our source as 48,000, so I want to adjust this to 48,000 just so it matches my source. I'm totally cool keeping it in stereo. And then for bit rate, sometimes it defaults to like 320. I always prefer going all the way up to the high end of 512 just so I can have like the most out of my audio that I can. And then from there, that's really it. That's all I mess with. And this will be great for YouTube or social media, the web, anywhere with a digital endpoint. This export setting is totally fine. We are in an H.264 format. I am exporting in 4K, but that's because it's going to end up going on YouTube, and YouTube can take 4K no problem. Vimeo can take 4K no problem. If you're talking about exporting for like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, obviously we don't want to go 4K because Instagram, for example, has a max aspect ratio of 1080. So this is where we kind of get into that territory of how can we create specific exports for specific platforms. And I think that could be a course all on its own because there are so many. This particular export setting is just kind of a generic one, an MP4 of fine size and quality that would work in a handful of different places. I want to export in 4K, so I'm going to match source. I'm okay with it being a bigger file, so I'm going to match source and have it be a high bit rate. I'm okay with it being H.264 because I want an MP4 export because that is going to be the most universal for the digital and web. And I want to make sure that my audio is also on par with how I recorded it in 4800 hertz. And I'm going to up my sample to 512. And again, this switched over to custom because I adjusted the bit rate of my audio. So fear not if your preset switches to custom as you kind of fine tune some of these export settings. And that's really it. You go ahead and hit export and you're done. You have successfully created your first edit, going all the way back to the beginning, class number 1, We talked about getting stuff off of our camera onto our hard drive. We talked about organizing it, creating bins. We stepped through 3-point editing, J-cuts, L-cuts, finding music, finding insert shots, pacing, sound effects. We created a style, we added graphics, we added color, and now we're exporting. I think you should give yourself a round of applause. Like, I'm happy for you. You should be excited. You've accomplished something that's incredibly difficult to do, and that's learn something new. So go ahead and take this edit. I'd love to see it, actually, if you want to like share a link maybe in the comments or something like that, or reach out to me personally with a message on YouTube. I would love to see the many variations that this Cafe Bustelo commercial could have taken. Looking forward to seeing it. See you in the next one.